what we have here is a jQuery going to fetch some dynamic list of data and then dynamically rendering the page, right? We had created some intermediate capability of being able to remove or add content, right? But none of this is going out to the server, right? All that is being done locally on the DOM, and the server is never notified of any of this, right? So we need to notify the server to make things more permanent. Make sense? Right? Now, for this to be able to work now, that we're going to be manipulating individual instances, we need to be able to, uniquely identify these instances, right? So that if I remove something, I need to be able to say, hey, I'm removing the user who has some unique identifier, right? So that I know it's this one that I'm removing. Make sense? Right? So to do that, we're going to have to change the data model just a smidge here, right? So let's go back to the, I'm going to stop the server for a second. And I'm going to go back to my data model here. And I'm going to enhance this a little bit and create a unique identifier, so private integer ID, right? And I'm going to add, from source, going to add another setter and getter to that ID. And I'm going to put it after the last here, right? So there it is. So I set and get. Okay. I'm also going to add another constructor that allows me to create these instances. So it'll be, let's see, source, create a constructor that takes all of these, right, and create it at the bottom. There it is. This one also takes IDs. So I can go back to my controller and I can initialize this so that this could have 1, this could have 2, this could have 3. Right? So, okay, great, excellent. What I'd like to be able to do now is that I like to be able to like maybe remove a user, no? Delete a user. So for instance, I'd like to be able to do a answer for requests that are coming from the server with not gets, but deletes from the client. The client is going to send, instead of a get, is going to send a delete a method, HTTP method, right? So this is going to be a delete mapping, right? So if an incoming HTTP delete comes in, the following URL, right, is going to be, the following URL will be invoked, right? So for deleting something, I need to be able to say, well, which one are you deleting? The first one, the second one, the third, which one are you deleting? I need to be able to go in and remove it from the array, okay? So to do that, we can parameterize the URL and pass in a placeholder, right, a value that we can then extract and then manipulate and do something with it, yes? All right, so we can do a user ID here. Right? And then what we need to be able to do is retrieve that user ID so that we can work with it. Right? So this will be something like public. Maybe I return the same array, but this will be something like delete user, right? And presumably we want an integer that has the user ID, right? Okay, and then it's going to return the same users, but ideally without the user that we want to remove. Okay, so we need to be able to retrieve this user. We need to map this placeholder, whatever comes in from the URL, we need to map it to this local variable, right, that is passing here, right? So to do that, we're going to annotate it with path variable. Path variable is going to parse the URL, is going to retrieve the value at the end of that URL, and is going to convert it. Right? We're going to be looking for a path for the path variable in the URL called user ID. Right? We're going to map it. We're going to parse it into an integer. It better be an integer, right? And we're going to pass it to you as an integer variable. Now that we have the ID, we need to somehow remove it from this array. Now the problem is that this is an array. Arrays are immutable, right? I cannot remove things from an array, right? If this were an array list, I could, but it's not. So let's convert this into an array list. Okay, I don't remember how to do this. It's arrays. What is it? as list like that. Oops. Array. Let's see. No arrays. Oh, there it is. What the? Why is it? Fine. What is it? That as list. As list method. As list. You can have an array, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so as list, and I have users. Did it load the utils? Looks like it's not loading the utils. And so this would be a an array list of user array list, maybe. Arrays. Array list. What are you complaining about? Array list. Add cast. What am I missing here? Go back. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, just a list? Okay. Still? I think it just wants me to cast it. All right, let's try casting it. All right, so now I have it as a list. Hopefully now I'll be able to delete it. I can say now I can remove it, hopefully, from the list. Let's see, we can do maybe a for user and user array list. We can say if user dot get ID is equal to the user ID. Can we remove it from here? I think you can, right? You should be able to say just user array list. Am I not going to run into some multi-threading issues that you're removing something over something that you're iterating over? Is that can you do that in Java? I think so, right? User array list dot remove.
You might want to just grab the index and just
Oh, okay. So the index. So the index. And then so might say, oh, I don't have the index here. Maybe I can say user. If I find the user, and then say maybe that the user that I want to remove is the user. Can I then say user array list remove? Will that work? I'm sorry? Well, let's see. Let's try and deleting something. Obviously, this will fail if it's a null. Let's restart this. Let's restart. Okay, excellent. So presumably that's running. Let me go back here, and in our delete, there's our delete. All right, our delete. Really, what we want to be able to do is to do the same URL that we were using here. The URL will be something like delete user, right? It'll be the same, but with a placeholder, right? This will be a user ID, and we're going to replace that user ID with the user that we're removing. Okay. All right. Excellent. how do we have the ID though? We have the user. This is going to remove the we don't really want to do this just yet, right? We have the current target. We have that. We're going to stop that for now. Somewhere here, we need to. Oops, is the server up and running? What happened? Uh-oh. On-call, blah, blah, blah. Delete user has already been declared. Uh-oh. I think delete user. Oh, URL. There's somewhere we have to encode when we delete these things. Yes? How do we encode that ID? Right, so the easiest thing is that we would encode the ID right on the button. Right? If we encode the ID of the user right on the button, when we click on it, we can grab the ID right off of the button. Yes? Right? So let's do that. When we render it, where is it? Here's where we render it, right? There it is, append the user. Okay? And if we step through it, in the network, when it comes through, here's the users. There's the users. Here's what it's come from the server. Notice that it has the ID in there. See that? The ID. Everything's there. And in our source, when we are rendering it here in the append user, right, if we step through this, notice that the user, one by one, right, has the first name, last name, it has the ID. There it is. Let's go back to the next one. There's our second one that has the ID number 2. So everything's there that we need, right? The ID is there. Perfect. Right, we just need to grab the delete button. Just like we associated with delete event, we're also going to change its attribute. We're going to change an attribute, the ID attribute, and we're going to set it to the ID so that we know we can grab it next time around when we click on it. Yes? Right, so let's do that. Here's our delete button, right? We're associating an event. We're also going to do a delete button. We're going to change an attribute, right? So jQuery provides this function called attribute that allows you to add to the tag. It allows you to add any number of attributes to it, right? Maybe class, ID, style, any attribute that you can add here, right? So we're going to add an attribute called ID. We're going to change the attribute called ID, and the value is going to be the user's ID value. See that? All right? Okay, so let's try it out. So we run it through. If we inspect the delete button, we realize that notice that it has the ID on it. See that? Right, it has the ID on it. So all these buttons have the ID now associated to it, right? So we can say view, inspect. Notice that it has the ID number 3. See that? Right, so now in the delete handler, right, when we have the event, here is the delete button, right? This current target is actually the delete button. This is the delete button, right? So we can retrieve the ID, constant the ID. We can get it from there, the delete button. The delete button. We can grab the attribute ID. Okay, now we have the ID. We can say console log the ID. So now if we go up to the console and we click on the delete, there it is, 3, 2, 1. See that? Right? So now we can create the URL that we need, the URL to go out back to the server, which is going to be what? It's going to be the delete user URL. We are going to replace the string user ID. We're going to replace it with our local ID variable. And now we're going to have hopefully the URL. We have the URL now, right? So that if I click on here, that didn't work. What? Console. If I click here, that's the URL that I want to go out to users 1, users 2, users 3, right? Which is going to map nicely with this URL. It's going to map to this URL over here, right? So we're ready to send an AJAX invocation. We're going to send .ajax, the URL. We have the URL. Okay, yes.
Generate the ID version we created.
Yep, we're going to have to randomly select, choose some ID, maybe using time, right? Like a new date time. Yep. We're very good. Okay, so now we're not generating a get. We're not generating a get, right? Get is the default thing that Ajax does, right? If you don't tell it anything, it always does a get. But now we want to use a delete, right? And how do you configure that? Is it type? Delete, I think it is. All right. And then success is going to go back to render this, right? We're going to handle users again. We're going to call render users here. All right, let's try it out. Let's see if it blows up. Okay, let's look at the network traffic, and let's click on delete here. Okay, went out to users. Let's see. It says internal server error. Oh my goodness. Something on the server went wrong. Our Java didn't like it. Null, unsupported operation null. Okay, something is wrong with our Java. All right, I'll work on this later today, and I'll post it in a GitHub repository, and I'll share with everyone so that you can continue using whatever I have so far. All right, excellent. Thank you.